Joining me now, Congressman Mike Quigley, Democrat of Illinois. Congressman, how you doing?
I've been better after watching all of this.
Yeah, well, what do you think?
It was a horrible night.
The debate.
Yes, and everything's not okay. I know people's instinct is to be loyal, and I appreciate that. I know their instinct is to be a cheerleader, but that's not helpful. We need folks who are willing to understand where we are and what we have to do. And that is extraordinarily difficult. But you do it under the specter of a second Trump term, right? Hey, and I was in the room on January 6th. The second Trump term is a continuation of the last days of his first term, which is a nightmare in every respect. So I don't think they're helping anyone.
Who's they?
Those who cheer on and think, oh, everything's going to be okay with where President Biden is. This is hard to do. I would rather be doing anything else. I'd rather be out in the Midwest talking to diaspora about what a second Trump term means to Ukraine.
You have been probably, I would say, the most strenuous advocate on behalf of the Ukrainian people in the U.S. Congress. Your district has a huge part of the Ukrainian diaspora. It's something you feel deeply about.
It's extraordinary because I know what happened. The last time I was in Ukraine, we met with President Zelensky, and we were in villages near 50 miles from the Russian border where they had been occupied. And they said to us after going through that hell, they said, if you leave, the Russians will be back. First day in office, Trump pulls all support out. And this has all been done.
Okay, so those are the stakes, both for American democracy, for Ukrainian democracy. So what do you think should happen? I mean, there are Raul Grijalva, Seth Moulton, and Lloyd Doggett of Texas have explicitly said on the record they think the president should step aside and allow someone else to run. Do you agree with them?
I started the week doing an interview where I was talking about everything else, and then this came up, and I asked for help to get the words out, and I couldn't help because it's like talking to a loved one about such a tough situation. A man who pulled us out of COVID, who pulled us out of an autocracy, who did so many great things. How do you tell that person he can't do this anymore? So the way I started it was by thanking him, showing them that deference, and suggesting that his decision isn't just going to affect who sits in the White House for the next 4 years, but who controls the House and the Senate. These races are razor thin, those frontline seats. And of course, the Houses and the Senate are decided by single digits. And all these critical votes that everyone cares so much. So I would say to those folks who say everything's fine, it's not. And everything you care about is on the line. And you have to be realistic and you have to be tough. So the way I say this has probably changed since that day, just because I've had time to accept this and look at the polls. And if I talked to the president, I would say something different.
But you didn't answer the question. Do you agree with Raul Grijalva, Lloyd Doggett, and Seth Moulton? The president should step aside.
I had a hard time processing getting to that point with him, as I think anybody would who respects him so much. I would say, Mr. President, your legacy is set. We owe you the greatest debt of gratitude. The only thing that you can do now to cement that for all time and prevent utter catastrophe is to step down and let someone else do this. Because I think day one, we're back in a dogfight. All of a sudden, all the things we're talking about with President Biden, we've got a lot more we can talk about with Trump. Not just that he lied 28 times during the debate and that he's an absolute monster, but he has cognitive issues, something that Speaker Emeritus Pelosi brought up earlier this week. She's absolutely right.
So one of the arguments that other folks have made, and again, I think I've been pretty honest about this. You're talking about working your way through this. I feel somewhat similarly differently because I'm a journalist. I'm not an elected member, but I have a deep stake in the prospering of American democracy and its continuation. The idea of like the chaos that lies on the other side of that decision, that it would rip the Democratic Party apart. What do you think about that?
There's a process to do this. When we were trying to win in 2020, it was like, oh, we're going to be torn apart. I think people came together and made a very collectively pragmatic decision in those primaries. They were going to be with Joe Biden because he had the best chance to beat Trump. They were right. They did it, and it worked. So that was chaotic. That was difficult. We didn't think we were going to get there. we're in a situation, ironically, it involves Joe Biden, the opposite scenario, where he can't be the person who's at the top of the ticket. So, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with having people intensely disagree with how we get to that point. But I think for the same reasons they came together 4 years ago, they will come together this time behind one candidate. And I think people underrate the bench. I think we have a lot of people who are great. I have the greatest respect for the vice president. So I think we can get beyond all that stuff. But clearly the alternative now is a very bleak scenario with, I would say, almost no help of succeeding. And it doesn't just affect the White House. It affects all of Congress and our future.
Let me just follow up on that, because there's some, I think the Biden people, and I use that moment in the intro intentionally, they're sort of, in 2020, it looked like he was done for after New Hampshire. There's been a few moments, we've talked about them, Trump after Access Hollywood, where I think if you went up to anyone who's a political practitioner, they'd be like, the guy's toast, he's done. Yeah. He wasn't, right? So there's some sense in which there's some part of me sympathetic to the argument of, like, don't get caught up in the moment, things can change, this, like, don't get too, because you never know what's going to happen. Does that weigh on you at all?
Sure. But look, a lot of pressure here. That's why it took time to get here.
Yeah.
But 4 years ago, you saw a different Joe Biden.
I think that's uncontroversial.
And there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I came to the point, as part of the Intel Committee investigation, Russian investigation, as part of the Ukrainian investigation, that there are a majority of Republicans in this country. We grew up thinking, I'll believe it when I see it. I think I'll see it when I believe it. I think Donald Trump was absolutely right when he said I could shoot somebody at Fifth Avenue and my people would still be with me. Democratic voters saw a catastrophe of debate, and a significant number had paused, clearly independents. And they're going to be critical here. Well, how many votes did Trump win by in 3 states?
55,000.
55,000. They could fill Soldier Field and have room to spare.
Congressman Mike Quigley, congressman here from Illinois. As I said, he has been incredibly dogged on the question of Ukraine. I'd love to talk to you more about that as this all develops.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.